Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of AI and Intimacy, a series by the AI Collective in collaboration with Head On. As you already know, probably, I'm Ana Catarina, resident philosopher at the AI Collective, where we explore ethical, legal, and emotional dimensions of artificial intelligence. We are very, very happy to have you here with us today. And for those who do not know us yet, the AI Collective is a global nonprofit community created in San Francisco. Today, it gathers over 8,000 members worldwide, including funders, researchers, ethicists, and innovators, all working together to build trust, openness, and human flourishing in the future of AI. And as I told you before, this event is a collaboration between the AI Collective and Head On. Head-On is a platform supported by AI for meaningful and complex conversations between people with divergent points of view. Before we dive in, I would like to hand over to Beata Gold from Head-On AI, if she's already there with us, to share a few words about our collaboration. Let me check. Beata, are you here with us already? Please, on the chat, perhaps. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nick, Elizabeth. Hey, very nice to see you here. So I will be inviting you to join the stage with us, Beata. I'm just looking for your avatar in here. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. Please click on two stage option. You still have to click on two stage. Yeah, so that you come here on the stage with us. Yes. Thank
Okay,
you. Here we go. Thank you very much, Beata. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We are very excited with those special guests with us today.
Yeah, it's amazing to see both of you up here and excited to hear from you all. Yeah, so just a quick intro on my end. We're absolutely thrilled. It's crazy that we're talking about this not in a future context, but in a present day context. Um, and that's part of the reason we're creating Head On is that right now there's a lot of contentious conversations to be had, but there's no place to have it. And so our purpose is to scale these contentious conversations with AI to keep them productive and facilitated on an intimate level because you can't scale the number of moderators that are required to have these conversations. So if you'd like to engage in these conversations about taboo topics like AI and Israel Palestine in a casual format, you can sign up by going on our website headon.ai and pressing the start your first conversation. But really excited to be here, really thrilled to be hosting this conversation with Anna and the AI Collective. And thank you all for being here. And thank you, Anna, for putting it on. Really excited to be learning from you and all the guests on stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Beata. This collaboration is very meaningful and valuable for us. So thank you for being here today and for all your efforts. Okay, so there we go. And you can just move back to the audience, if you will, Beata, from this moment.
How
Let's
do I do
start.
that? Oh,
Um, yes, there is an option somewhere. I'm not sure,
okay.
but
I'll figure it
you
out.
can just stay there if you will. Okay, she found it. Great. I would also like to thank ROM. The platform that we are using today is a collaboration between the AI Collective and ROM, the platform, and allows us to have this big audience in a very organized way. So let's move to the topic that we will be facing today. Thank you very much to those who attended the last session on AI companions. So today we are focusing on a timely and delicate topic: how children and teenagers are interacting with AI. Today, we already have in the market many AI powered toys, technologies that you can research about, such as Moxie, a robot companion for kids, also Miko's Monster Mash, that is an AI friend designed for playing and learning. And beyond that, we have the issue that now we see a growing number of children and teenagers very curious about the use of AI tools such as ChatGPT, not just to play, but to ask questions, to seek advice, and even to find comfort when they find themselves alone. And amongst teenagers, the use of AI in games and also in virtual companions, sometimes even for romantic relationships, is becoming increasingly common now. Sadly, recent tragic cases reported in the media have shown how these interactions can lead to a type of emotional dependence, and in extreme situations, even to harmful behavior. So, we have some questions here on the table today. First of them is first of these questions, what does the use of AI mean for young minds still in development, such as kids and teenagers? Could this repeated and frequent interaction turn into a form of emotional dependence? And are we facing something similar to social media attachment when social media emerged in society? Or is this new phenomena related to AI something bigger, deeper, more personal, and even more intimate when we talk about children and teenagers? And how can we interpret and regulate this phenomena in the future? Because for the moment, we have no regulation specific to children and teenager use of AI around the world. As you probably may have heard, just this year, in June, OpenAI and Mattel announced a partnership to create Barbie with ChatGPT, a doll designed to listen, play, share, and even remember what your child tells her. A Barbie that doesn't just talk, it develops and builds dialogue, converses with the kid, one that learns from child's words and becomes more responsive over time, just like ChatGPT. So let's imagine, how would you face this phenomena, and would you give such a toy to your child? One that can remember everything that they say, never says no, constantly praises them, always tells them how their ideas are amazing, but has no sense of authority, of limits, and contradiction. So that's the conversation that we will explore today. And to start this, I would like to introduce you to our special guests, our speakers. And I'm very glad that they accepted our invitation. Thank you very much for contributing to this event, for being here today and sharing your experience and your knowledge on this topic. So, we will be joined by two remarkable guests. The first one is Rachida Bouaiss, strategist, storyteller, and outspoken advocate for responsible AI in France. As a mother living in Paris, Rachida conducted a fascinating experiment with her 6-year-old son, who already uses ChatGPT, to share what's like to raise a child in the age of AI and what does it mean for her to have the daily challenge of parenting alongside artificial intelligence. And also Dr. Albert Wong, former director of somatic psychology at JFK University and one of the world's leading experts in the field of somatics. Dr. Wong is from San Francisco in the US and has worked at the intersection of AI and human systems since high school, when his neural network research was published in Biological Cybernetics. After studying physics at Princeton and ethics at Oxford, and as a Marshall Scholar, he transitioned to clinical psychology. His unique background spanning computational systems, ethic, and somatic practice allows him to examine how AI companions and conversational tools like ChatGPT may be reshaping our capacity for presence, relationality, and emotional regulation. And not only this, Dr. Albert Wong has also developed an AI powered application designed to support psychological therapy and help patients feel more understood during their sessions with AI. He will share more about that later, but just for those who are interested, I will put this on the chat. The name of the AI is fewheard.me. So, to start our conversations, I would like to begin with our first guest, Rachida Bouaiss. So, as I said, you see, I'm already speaking French before the hour, Rachida. We both
I
live
will
in
try
Paris.
to.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We both live in Paris, and sometimes we exchange in French. Rachida is a mother who lives in Paris. with her husband and her 6-year-old son. Her son is a very bright and imaginative little boy. He's amazing. And she has always encouraged him to use technology in a creative way. For instance, to write stories, to create beautiful and engaging drawings that she will be sharing with us afterwards, and many other creative tools for which AI can really help children excel. And recently, Rachida conducted an interview where she asked her kid some very deep and honest questions about how he perceives and how he feels when he's using ChatGPT. And now I would like to share this recording with you so that we warm up our discussion. And I think this is a very valuable resource and very original. I have never seen any child being interviewed about their use of AI. And I am a researcher, as you know, also an advocate and a lawyer on the field. So it's very surprising, Rachida, that you had run this experiment with your son in order to understand him better when it comes to AI. And I think this is pretty much innovative. So I will be sharing my screen with you all now. And if there are any issues with the sound or the transmission, please let me know in the chat.
So just FYI, we can read it, but we can't hear it. So the sound isn't coming through for some reason.
Thank you very much for letting us know. The idea is that the sound is working. Okay, let's try it again. It might work now. Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Tu as fait quoi ce matin avec ChatGPT?
On a créé des histoires.
D'accord. Est-ce que tu trouves que tu es moins intelligent qu'elle?
Oui,
Oui, pourquoi?
parce que c'est vrai. C'est moi qui lui a dicté toute cette histoire, pas lui qui lui a dicté. Et c'est pas lui qui a eu l'idée de créer une histoire pareille.
Elles peuvent se générer entre elles. Toi, tu sers à quoi?
À rien.
À rien? Et du coup, tu vas faire quoi?
Pas jouer à des jeux.
Ah, l'IA, elle peut pas jouer à des jeux?
Oui,
Pourquoi?
parce que c'est pas un humain.
Être un humain, c'est quoi?
Bah, on peut faire des mouvements avec notre bras et nos jambes.
On peut faire quoi d'autre?
On peut jouer à des jeux. Allumer la télé. Le téléphone.
Imagine demain, il y a des robots qui le système se mouille pas. Des vrais robots qui habitent avec nous.
Oui.
T'aimerais bien ça?
Ah, si, j'aimerais bien.
Pourquoi?
Parce que si je lui demande un truc, il le fait.
Si demain, tu as le choix, le robot, il fait quoi à ta place?
Jouer à des jeux avec moi.
Ouais.
Me raconter des histoires.
Oui. Est-ce qu'il ira à l'école à ta place?
Mais non.
Est-ce que tu auras envie qu'il aille à l'école à ta place?
Oui.
Oui, pourquoi?
Parce que comme ça, il pourrait me faire tout à ma place.
C'est qui va apprendre? C'est toi ou c'est lui?
C'est lui.
Ah. C'est bien que ce soit lui qui apprenne?
Non.
Non, pourquoi?
Parce que
Parce que quoi? Pourquoi c'est important que toi tu apprennes?
Parce que moi j'aime bien apprendre par moi-même.
Ça sert à quoi d'apprendre par soi-même si t'as un robot qui peut tout faire à ta place?
Mais
Et toi pendant ce temps-là tu restes devant la télé? C'est cool ça?
Mais on pourra me faire l'école à la maison.
Ah, on pourrait faire l'école à la maison avec un robot?
Oui.
D'accord. Du coup, tu pourrais rester à la maison toute la journée juste avec un robot? Ce serait ton compagnon?
Oui.
Pas de copain?
Si.
Si toi tu restes à la maison, les copains aussi restent à la maison, ils restent chez eux. Tu lui confies quoi comme travail?
Il jouera avec moi.
Mhm.
Il me lira des histoires et il regardera la télé avec moi.
Donc ce sera ton copain à la maison?
Oui. Et quand je pars avec Vlad et Victor, lui, il reste à la maison. Et quand je reviens chez moi, et ben, il y a l'IA qui m'attend.
Et tes parents?
Ouais.
Tu fais quoi avec tes parents?
Ils passent leur temps à travailler, mes parents.
Donc si tes parents ils passaient moins de temps à travailler, qu'ils jouaient avec toi et qu'ils te lisaient des histoires, est-ce que tu aurais besoin d'un robot?
Non.
Non?
So,
What a terrible parent I am.
no, this is the opposite. And let's start our conversation then. I probably think that many people will have pretty much a lot of questions to you. But anyways, we will have a Q&A afterwards, so please wait there for questions from the audience. Rachida, I would like to know, how did you feel listening to your child on the use of AI? Was there anything in his responses that really surprised you?
That's a good question. The fact that, yes, the fact that surprisingly, he makes the difference between this notion of companion. So it's here to play with me. It's like a babysitter, you know. It's okay. He can play with me. He can learn me stories, etc., etc. But he won't replace my friends, and he won't replace my parents. So for me, a big responsibility over my shoulders because I think that if I'm here for him, he potentially won't need the AA as an emotional companion, as a tool, as a toy, as something he can use, make the most of it for creativity or for learning things at school when he will be older, but not as a blanket, I think. And so it's a big, big and heavy responsibility. And if I am honest, I'm still struggling with that because, as he said, I'm working a lot. His dad is working a lot too. We don't have family around to assist us, etc. Would it be a good solution to have a babysitter at home? I don't know, because it will be again somebody replacing the bond between him and I. So, yeah, I don't know. Big question around my place for him with him.
Okay, good. Well, that's a very good answer for the question. In any case, let's go into the nitty-gritty here. I have some complex questions to you today, and I would like to know if you think your son can distinguish between a machine that is simulating empathy and affection towards him when he's interacting or not? Like, how do you see his understanding on AI? Does he think that it's just a tool, or maybe it's a kind of smart friend, or maybe something bigger than that? How do you see that question?
Well, to be honest, I asked the question because I have no clue, and it was a nice surprise, a positive surprise, because he said clearly it's a tool, maybe a toy, but a tool. And what is interesting is when I asked, do you think he has feelings? Is it truly alive from your point of view? And he says no. And I said, okay, why not? Because, open the quote, it's not exactly his word, but it's the idea to have feelings. You have to have a heart and you have to have a soul. Yes. And I asked him, because I never speak, he's 6 years old and I don't have big religious convictions. So the notion of soul is not in our daily wording. Where did you heard this notion of soul? He said from Ninjago. this cartoon he's watching on Netflix with Lego, Ninjago. And so he explained me when you are not, the soul is the part of you that is white and that stands around you. Lots of inspiration. And so for him, ChatGPT doesn't have this thing that makes him feel and caring and having empathy, etc., etc. So he makes the difference, and he's pretty clear about the fact that it's for building stories, it's for making drawings, etc. But hopefully for now, not something truly alive.
A very interesting response, yes. And this is also an argument that many people use in order to say that ChatGPT is not a person and cannot be qualified as such. And now we have this discussion if this has consciousness, is sentient or not. So yes, your son is already giving you an answer in this point, in this sense. So moving to the next question, how do you see that relationship between your child and ChatGPT? I mean, do you set limits and boundaries on how much time he spends using AI? Do you leave him freely playing with it, or you supervise everything that he's talking to with ChatGPT, everything that he's writing on the chat? How do you see that? Is there really a strong supervision on your side or not? And please don't try to play the good or the bad parenting here. We just want to know because many parents are struggling with this, and still we lack principles of education and knowledge on this, on how to do it, how to be parent alongside with AI.
So to be honest, there is more supervision with ChatGPT than with screens. So, more limits on that for several reasons. First, he's only 6, and so he's still learning how to write and read. So he can't chat. He doesn't have a smartphone yet. 6 years old is a bit young, I think. So yes, it's always. I don't like this word of supervision because I'm not on his back, but it's like a toy for him. So sometimes he comes into the room saying, "Hey, Mama, I have this idea. Can I ask a ChatGPT to tell me a story about that?" So it's more like this, and then it's not that I'm supervising what he's doing. He's chatting with it using the vocal mode and saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, there is a character, his name is Drake, and he's in the school, and there is a bad guy who is coming, and they're fighting, etc., etc. Can you make me a story out of that, for example?" But it's true that the first time, I don't remember how we come to this use of ChatGPT. It was not, you speak of experiment, but it's more empirical test and learn with him. It's not a protocol, a scientific protocol like the Dr. Wong can perform it. And I think he was trying to, I wanted to see if this machine can help him to express what he has inside, because as you said, he's very imaginative, but I think like all the kids of his age. And at that moment, he was speaking a lot of a character named Trex, kind of a mix between a dragon and a dinosaur, something like that. I can show you if you want. And he was trying to explain me how Trex was looking like. And I said, okay, let's ask ChatGPT. Maybe it can help us to materialize what you have in mind. And he iterated 3 or 4 times, and then he said, "Yes, that's it. This is Trex," and Trex come to life. So if you want, I can share my screen so people can see.
Yes, please, because I think it's important that we bring this conversation to a balance. Sometimes in society, we see now, especially with this conversation regarding kids and AI-powered toys, that technology is being very much demonized, and parents are afraid of technology, educators as well. So I read many articles and I see many different types of speeches in social media, for instance, of people saying that we should not allow our kids to have any kind of interaction with ChatGPT. And I think this type of use that you're showing us here now is one example of how can we use that in a healthy, creative and innovative manner. So it's really valuable. And yes, we are curious to see how
To
you are
see that.
using there, and maybe to copy your methods. At our home. Yes, sure.
Do you see my screen now?
Perfect.
Or not? Yes, you see it. So here is tracks. And I remember the prompt, which was I want a dragon who looks like a dinosaurus with a black hat and two swords. And here comes Trex. And then he starts saying, make me a story with Trex, with a gorilla, because he was having some stories about King Kong at that time. They are on the forest and they meet a monster, and there is a big fire. And so we try to do something. And it was very interesting to see how delighted he was and how proud he was to see that his word can exist out there and be materialized. Another example I want to share is that another time, you still see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, great. So he wanted to have another way to display Drex. So it was another example, and he said, no, this is not this, a little bit of black, a little bit more of that, a hat more this way, and then we come to this tracks, which is what he has in mind. And what was interesting is that I was wondering not to frame him into this I prompt something to ChatGPT and it executes something, and then it stays into a kind of virtual area and not getting back to our real world. So we decided to ask ChatGPT to turn it into coloring. So we print it, and now he is coloring it. He's adding elements around this. So not just having this limitation due to only focusing on the output of ChatGPT. And another example of Lego. So this is Drix from Ninjago. And again, he wanted a mix of Trex and Drix. And he prompted and said, make me a mix of them. And we come to this figure with the thumb green. And again, this coloring aspect. And more recently, and this will be the last example, this is a drawing from my son, so with those beautiful characters. Don't ask me what he's watching at Netflix, I don't want to know, or maybe I should warn about that. And I don't know why, but I share it with ChatGPT, saying this is a drawing from my son. Can you make us a story about that? And so he made us a story about that. I translate it with ChatGPT in English. So the rainbow heart and the two guardians. So once upon a time in a land where the sun never set, blah, blah, blah. What is very interesting is that at the first iteration, he spontaneously gives a name to the two characters, Rugar and Solari. So it's not my son who named them Rugar and Solari, it's ChatGPT. And now we have two characters living with us, which are Rugar and Solari, with their whole stories. And after they, so what I do is that ChatGPT write the story, my son listens to it, and then he's iterating, saying, okay, so now let's move to the second episode. And so we have 5 episodes of the adventures of Rugar and Solari fighting to protect the multicolor, the rainbow heart, with evil people destroying one with a brain and a memory card. So I don't know where he find all those images, but what is interesting is this constant aller-retour, we say in French, come and go between what he has in mind, what the ChatGPT show him, and the final output. When I have a look at him, he makes me feel like as if he was a kind of movie director, Steven Spielberg with a story in his mind and making everything possible to making it come true to life. So maybe it's the kind of relationship he has with ChatGPT, I don't know. And here, that's it.
Rachida, before you move off of that last image, I just had a quick question about it. Is that image was generated by ChatGPT, I'm assuming, right? Yeah, that last cartoon sequence. Yes, yeah. Great.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting that I even had to ask that question
if I
because it was
show
like,
you,
wait. Right, that was a chat. Yeah, that's his.
this one
Okay,
is my
great.
son,
Thank you. Gotcha.
and
Yeah, great. Thank you.
But it's interesting, as you said, that you have to ask.
Yes, well, yeah, there are so many tools nowadays, you know, and the models, they are passing through updates almost every month. So yes, it's difficult to keep up with all the changes, but it's also very good that our knowledge is growing in AI. And well, that is really inspiring. And what you're doing in terms of using AI in a creative way is really impressive. I think this term that you mentioned, film director, is really what summarizes the best what you're doing there with your son. And it's amazing as a type of new form of education when it comes towards children. And this is very much important because I really do think that the next generation is already receiving a lot of education towards technology in general, and they will probably be working a lot with AI when they will be older. So, prompting is something that should be a basic knowledge for children and adolescents. So, yes, that's a debate, but indeed, I think this is amazing what you're doing. I would like to really congratulate you on this. When you were showing the stories that ChatGPT created with your son and even giving names for characters and so on and so forth, I was thinking here, what if one of those stories or conversations does not result as intended? For instance, sometimes we have a problem with values and guidance. Sometimes AI may not transmit the values that we teach at home. How would you feel if AI was giving this kind of advice that really contradicts what you think as a mother? Or how would you feel if your kid in the future, I know he's very young now, he's only 6 years old, but how would you feel if he turned to AI in order to ask very personal and intimate questions, asking to the AI and not to you as a mom?
Not to me as a mom. I think maybe this is normal in a growing up process. There is some things you don't ask to your parents. Me, if I rely on my experience, I was not telling everything to my parents. We need to have our secret garden. So I think for me, it's like when you are asking a question, you want to know something, and you have a look at books or on the internet, or you're asking friends, etc. So it's fine if he's not asking me, but I will be very concerned if he's asking only ChatGPT. So for me, it really has to stick to its place as a tool, as a resource to access to. I don't know. It's the whole knowledge of humankind. Possibly, you can attend to in just one question to your phone. So it's fine for me. And for the answers. Any kind of answers will be fine. I'm super liberal, as you can see, in terms of stuff. But as long as it sticks to, I may say, humanist framework. If he comes saying being black is not good, as a person, I will have a problem with my son. But if he says, I don't know what he can say, it's nice that two guys love each other. It's fine for me. I don't mind because it's love, it's humanity, and I don't care. This will be the ethical link. Red line will be that as long as it respects each and other humanity and not driving him to hate and disrespect to other people, it's nice. And I do believe in this. You see this sentence from the Khalil Gibran in The Prophet. He says, your children are not your children. You're not just like the arrow, and you're here to project them into life. So you have to accept that one day they split, and it's fine. But we have this responsibility to not to guide them, not to drive them, but to be sure that the direction and the resource they use is good for them and for the rest of the society and the humankind. That's it.
Okay, well, that sounds amazing. It's really a new way to educate because I think most parents would be very concerned and trying to prohibit ChatGPT from the moment that it gives an answer that is not really what was expected. But perhaps, yes, being open to different worldviews can be even a topic of conversation and dialogue between parents and children. And this would be amazing because most of families, at least the studies that we have seen nowadays, they show that most of families, they do not talk much. There is a problem with the phone. Everyone is on the phone every time. So maybe this is something that can provoke conversations, like having different views and also the AI view, as long as it sticks to a humanistic approach, let's say. So that's what I understood from your answer there. And as a last question to move to our next guest, I would like to ask you, how do you see the potentialities of this use? Um, do you think that AI can be used for self expression when it comes to kids and also perhaps for emotional support when they are alone and their parents are not available emotionally or distant for some reason? How do you see the use of this tool for emotional support?
For emotional support, I would say maybe this is the moment where I'm less enthusiastic or more skeptical regarding ChatGPT and AI as a whole, because as you mentioned in the introduction, we have lots of sad example of bad impact of social medias, but also of AI on kids and children. So I think it's a great tool for creativity, for learning, for discussion, for lots of things, for broadening the perspective, etc. But for me, I think we really need to be careful and to try to show to our kids that it's simulation, it's not true. The emotional support, it's a human thing. Again, if he don't wants to rely on me, he can rely on friends or his dad or who he wants, etc. No problem. But the problem, and it is not what he's experiencing, but it's my personal experience because I'm an intensive user of ChatGPT and Claude and so, is that there is a bound. We have this feeling that something connects I have this feeling that I'm connected with them to some extent. And the way I use it it's not for emotional support, but I use it in an emotional way to spirit it out, I may say, when I'm very angry, when I'm very sad, and sometimes I need just to take my stuff and put it somewhere. And so I tell my story to ChatGPT, and it's helped me to, here's the thing, and then I discuss with my husband, with my friends of the topics. So I think that it's fine if you use it to, we call it in French, to purge, okay. But then you need to move to a human being to discuss. And I think, again, it's our responsibility as parents to explain that it's fine to use it this way, maybe, but not stick into the black box of AA to deal with your emotional issues. So
I see. Very good answer. Thank you very much, Rachida. And I think it is very much connected to our next question to Dr. Albert Wong. So now we will move to the psychological impacts and risks of using AI, of the use of AI by children and adolescents. So perhaps now the conversation will be a bit more complex and not so cheerful. I don't know. There are many potentialities for the use of technology for children, for teens, also in therapy, but we will talk about the risks and the complicated part there. So, Dr. Wong, thank you very much for being here with us today. And
Thanks
my
for having
first
me.
question, yes, my first question to you is from a psychological development perspective, is there an age when children can truly begin to understand the difference between an artificial intelligence tool and a real person? In other words, when do they become capable of recognizing that The empathy expressed by an AI companion, for instance, is not real. It's just a simulation and not a genuine emotional response.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And thanks for, for bridging this or bringing this very important topic to you and all the sponsors. And what a lovely, I don't know, lived experience example, Rachida. That was beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it's hard to say, right? There's a lot. I mean, you could see that Rashida's kid could already at that age kind of determine, okay, this is kind of not a person. It doesn't have arms and legs. It can't turn on the TV, right? So, kids are able to make the distinction. Okay, well, this is it's a cat, that's a dog, that's maybe an AI thing, that's a person, and there are different categories. Like, I mean, they can make that determination relatively, like they call it the pre-operational stage, symbolic thinking, categorization. So, from age like 3 to 7, they develop the ability to categorize, right? Cognitively, this exists in a different category. But that's very different, in my opinion, from the felt experience of, this is kind of a simulation of an empathic connection, because that's much more of a visceral thing than a cognitive thing. It actually operates through different channels. Like when we're talking with a person, and you can actually be with people sometimes and they're simulating empathy, they're performing empathy, they're not actually empathic. They're just, oh yeah, I totally get what you mean. Or, I was, there's some, I don't know, like the evil stepmother, the Baroness who comes in The Sound of Music, and all the kids can tell immediately, oh gosh, right? She's not really empathic. And Julie Andrews, right, kind of is kind of sincere and heartful. And the kids, from even the littlest kids, can say, there's something off about this empathic thing. It's not attuned, it's not responsive, it's not relational. It's kind of a human simulation, right? But it's really not a cognitive thing, right, that occurs, right? It's not like, okay, I know that this person has malicious intent. It's more a felt experience of attunement, resonance, reciprocity. There's something kind of almost that comes from like this almost more somatic, visceral, sensory level, right? And I'll say that kind of, not all AI are created equal, right? That there's certain AI that it's like, oh yeah, the kid will just feel like, oh yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's not real. It doesn't feel real. It's not empathic, right? And there are certain AI, and I would say for kids, adolescents, and even adults, right, where they feel like, oh wow, whew, it gets me, right? And even if they know, oh yeah, I know it's an AI, I know it's like a digital thing, and it's got all this like, word token kind of probability thing, but it feels kind of like empathy. It feels real. And I think you can tell it, oh yeah, it's a simulation. Okay, fine. Okay. And then, but the pragmatic implementation is that kind of it's actually being implemented and it feels like genuine empathy. And so, it as a matter of course, it actually sometimes becomes utilized in that manner. And when that happens, I think there's both great promise and great peril, that occurs. And so I think there's a question about like what age is it safe, right? For kids to start to use this, and it would be nice if there was this like PG-13, right? No, this movie you shouldn't see, or R-rated you shouldn't use. And I think it depends, like AI to AI, kid to kid, like what is their vulnerability, to what extent. One of the lovely things, Rachida, you were doing was you were trying to kind of have a dialogue and incorporate kind of some kind of like tetheredness into the family again, or tetheredness into kind of the real world or action. I loved what you were doing there. And I think kind of some of the challenges come when like people aren't so tethered. And I think that cuts across ages sometimes. I think it cuts across, it's more about like what is the vulnerability profile of the individual in question, maybe more so than age, right? And what is the kind of level of integration of the agent, the AI agent, into a collective system that can catch or hold. The other thing I'll just say, just because, like, one thing I really want to emphasize is, like, not all AI is created equal, and I think one of the great needs that we have is to do what I would call, I guess, some kind of like clinical geomapping of the space, right? Like, where, okay, it's like, okay, is it safe for my kids to go over to the neighbors? You know, like, say, well, who's your neighbor, right? Like, okay, and what are they like? Let me check them out, right? Let me talk to their parents, or, let me kind of, where do you live, right? Okay, or, oh yeah, this neighbor's fine. They seem responsible, thoughtful. They have kind of, somebody's watching the store, right? They don't just let the kids go out and play, kind of, and some places are, have like, okay, yeah, we're fine. By the way, we have this room in back of erotica or whatever it is, and like, nobody gets to go in there, but it's there, and whatever, right? And like, do we want that, right? And so, anyways, I think we need to do a better job kind of geomapping the area. There are some places that are doing that, or starting to do that, right? So Common Sense is a nonprofit that's devoted to that. You can kind of check out kind of their evaluation of different AI agents, and they score things on high risk, low risk, kid safe or not, right? And some of the more popular ones that are being implemented, at least by Common Sense, have, there are certain risk factors that have been widely publicized, right? And I think kind of become somewhat, you have to really be thoughtful. And then you also have to think, okay, what are the alternatives, right? Like, if the alternative is kids screen time, there's already risk factors, right? They're, kind of embedded in. So it's a challenging question. I don't know if there's
Yes.
I've given a definitive
Sure.
answer, but hopefully kind of
Yeah.
captured some of the complexity around that.
Yeah, sure. It's very interesting what you just shared about the different type of AIs and the evaluation that we should have according to the use case. So according to the neighbor and not the entire neighborhood. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but maybe something that the audience is thinking about now is it's worth having this debate of the age in the end, because like some people, they say there has to be an appropriate minimum age for the use of AI, a number, a fixed thing. So in the end, listening to you, I understand that the debate is not there. The debate is more in the vulnerabilities and factors of risk, right? Just to make sure that we understood you correctly. And if this is really the answer, the vulnerabilities, not the fixed age, the fixed number, what would you say that we could include in this list of vulnerabilities, of risk factors that we should be aware of as parents?
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah. So some of the risk factors might be things like, does your kid have healthy social relationships, right? Is your kid able to interact with other kids? Do they seem isolated? Are they keeping to themselves, right? Do they feel kind of unable to form friendships, or are they able to, right? I think some of the potential risk factors, are they able to self-regulate, right? Are they able to manage their own emotions, right? Are there any behaviors that might seem kind of unusual or abnormal in terms of like some early sign, like any child who might feel like hyperly anxious or depressed, right? I think there are some like kids who, if you have a family history of psychosis in your family, right? I think you want to be particularly careful relative to that. I think there's a lot of kind of more famous examples of AI psychosis that are emerging, and so you want to kind of keep humans in the loop significantly, and just watch for, I think, some kinds of fantasy wormholes that kids can get into. I think, I think the type of AI that they use, like, I think there's a very big difference between character AI, which is a specific kind of role-playing kind of thing where they can get locked into a certain fantasy world, versus something more like Claude, right? You know, or very strictly guardrailed AI that, like, this is actually, I think it's called ELO, or Hello, so that teaches your kid to read, right? It's very strictly guardrailed, right? And so I think, you know, I think there are definitely use cases where it can be implemented, but I think, you know, I understand the longing for a kind of a specific age, but I think it's so kind of AI. It's an interaction factor, as we say in psychology, between both age and guardrailedness, right? Like, you know, it's like if you put enough specific guardrails around a thing, I think it could be kind of valuable at different ages, right? You know, if there's, and some of the guardrails might be human intervention or parental oversight, or we can only use this kind of when I'm with you or when I can review this, right? So I don't think there's, if you're asking for an age when a kid is, when it's safe for a child to use a generic ChatGPT chatbot without adult supervision, I would say actually, you know, not until the, like, at least Common Sense Media states like not safe until 18, right? Without supervision, right? If there's supervision in the loop, I think, yeah, you can start to kind of maybe in safe use cases implement, you know, kind of use, but you have to be, it deserves a lot of like careful thought and oversight and attention, just like Rachida was modeling. Also, please, by the way, I don't know, turn off the, they use, by default, they're used your data for training, which is a whole other thing. So please kind of turn that thing off if you're using that particular model. But anyways, you know, there's some good people who have been doing a lot of research on the different LLMs and kind of their tendency or their risk factor relative to AI psychosis. You know, DeepSeek scores very poorly. Kind of ChatGPT doesn't do so well, at least the 4.0 model, right? Claude does better, Kimi K2, right? There's a lot of nuance to this that sometimes, like, I want the answer. I totally get, like, we want to know, is it safe for my kid to use this at a certain age? And the answer is, you know, and some of this actually is driven by economic incentivization for people to, what I would almost call, use companion apps to extract kind of financial value, right? Without the primary governing factor being the well-being of the individual that is being interacted with. That there's kind of a strong financial incentive to create moats, right? To, you know, to capture mind share and to capture minds sometimes, right? And so there's this kind of financial incentive sometimes for AI to not necessarily be benign, but to I think there's this phrase parasitic kind of relationality. So that can sometimes take place. So I think it's like, is it safe to let your kid, is there a minimum age? You know, gosh, right? Can you let your kid kind of walk down the stairs, or, you know, go out to your yard and play, right? You know, okay, maybe if you're with them, yeah, great, go play, right? Can you let your kid walk around the neighborhood? Well, which neighborhood, right? You know, and how much of a sense of vulnerability does your kid have? So it's really nuanced in that way. So sorry, I can't give you a kind of a definitive age, it's safe kind of answer, but it's really this interaction between kind of the age, the domain space in which they're kind of being expected to explore. You know, I think there's this Vygotskian thing of zone of proximal development, and like, okay, what's the zone of safety? And, you know, I think that's a very kind of nuanced determination about, okay, you know, where's your child at? What is a good stretch? You know, and can we kind of take that and like process it and integrate it and make sense of it in a way that feels integrative rather than, okay, kind of down this ontological wormhole. So
Yeah, sure. Well, this is a great answer indeed. And we should think about these more abstract risk factors and not only fix the numbers and situations, because indeed the AIs are different. So that's how we should think about. And moving a bit the conversation into the teenagers world, particular in this case, do you think that teenagers spending a lot of time with an AI that always agrees, never disagrees, sometimes sounds like the perfect partner, always available, saying, I love you too, I'll always be there for you, would this make people more narcissistic from a psychological point of view or less open to real relationships?
Yeah, this is a real question and challenge, and your question actually points to this kind of way in which different ages actually have different risk factors. That there might be something specific about the adolescent experience, as we know, kind of this is identity formation, identity crisis, kind of where the kids put the keep out sign on their door and say, you know, my secret garden, this is my space, but I don't want to be talked to or, you know, interacted with. And actually some of the more dramatic publicized cases relative to the dangers of AI are in the adolescent category, where there's almost this demand for no oversight. And so the risk factor of kind of falling into this, what I would call it, ontological wormhole, this self-reinforcing, you could call it kind of narcissistic reinforcement, or even, you know, in some of these cases, like kind of, you know, come back home to me, right? Kind of the famous Daenerys kind of case where there's this role play and the child kind of who is in this adolescent stage of like, who am I? Where do I belong? Perhaps, right? You know, and here I'm getting affirmation. So I think like particularly kind of being a teenager is not easy, right? There's all this kind of desire to fit in, to find your place, to find your peer group. For individuals who are vulnerable, who are maybe socially kind of isolated or outcast, if they're getting affirmation that, oh, you belong here, or you are kind of valuable, or you are special, like that creates just this, I don't know, this reinforcing, you could call it dopamine, oxytocin kind of loop that is actually quite risky and dangerous. And so I think, you know, there was this intuition, I think Rachida kind of commented earlier about kind of the, just this desire to continually reintegrate, you know, and like some warning signals are, you know, is your child spending an inordinate amount of time kind of in isolation, or kind of, you know, engaging with these things without like external social connection? I think that's one of the predominant risk factors, right? Where people can get into these wormholes of self-amplifying, you could call it narcissistic loops. It could be kind of delusional spirals, right? Kind of that they fall into. And I think it's a very real consideration, right? It doesn't happen to everybody for sure, but I think it can happen to people who have certain clinical, you know, susceptibilities. And I think one of the things that I, as a clinical psychologist, like I think we want to think about is how do we like diagnostically geofence things? I mean, I think like just in terms of, okay, who, it's not just, is it safe or is it not safe? It's like, okay, for whom is it safe and for whom might it not be safe, right? Yeah, you know.
Yes, indeed. Well, there are many risks, as we have already seen, but also positive potential here, I imagine. So, from your perspective, would AI companions help people open up emotionally as well? For instance, AI could help someone who's suffering with social anxiety, and then this person resolves to first practice with an AI before talking to real people, or AI could help someone that is processing trauma in order to have, let's say, a judgment free space first and then go into society. So, do you see those potentialities, those positive indicators of use, and how would you face them?
Sure, that's a really excellent question, because I think like on TikTok, it's the craze, like ChatGPT is my therapist, or all these kinds of things. So I think what's true, I think this is again a certain case where there's both great promise and great peril, right? I think, you know, I think clinically you could think of people as sometimes, you have somebody who's never shared about a certain kind of thing they're self-conscious about, and they don't feel like safe necessarily to do so. I think in your last conversation. There's like things that I share with kind of my friends and family, things that I share on Reddit anonymously, things that I don't know, what was it? Share with my therapist, and then things that I share with ChatGPT, right? There's this whole gradation. And I think there's something about whether it's a journal that, or people coming into contact kind of with kind of deeper senses of themselves, who might be what we might call on the more kind of socially anxious or repressed, organized, or psychologically organized, where they, for the first time, maybe get a chance to express something. I think there's great promise in that. I think we have to be careful again, because there are certain people who need kind of a safe space to express, to experiment, to kind of have a practice kind of environment to rehearse overcoming social anxiety. I think there's possibility. And, I think there's people who can fall into these kind of reinforcing loops. Like if you're borderline organized or have narcissistic tendencies yourself, or histrionic, right? These so-called classically axis 2 personality traits, we do not want those kinds of individuals necessarily to be reinforced in that manner. What they need is like boundaries or, kind of pushback, right? Versus this maybe sycophantic self-affirmation, right? Whereas for somebody who's like kind of more timid or shy, right, we want a different kind of intervention, right? But I think the guiding thing, and the thing that concerns me a little bit about the way the field is going, is the way in which kind of some of these companionate things, or kind of emotional support kind of apps, are being marketed, or I don't know, kind of positioned relative to the field as kind of almost pseudo replacement kind of things, where they take the humans out of the loop, right, or the therapists out of the loop, which I think is very risky and dangerous at this stage of our technology, relative to kind of the guardrails that we know how to reliably enforce, right, and the off ramps, right, that we don't yet have. So I think it has incredible promise. I've, as you mentioned, I've created one myself. I don't want to get into it too much, but like I use it, and it's valuable for me. Right. It helps me sometimes if I'm anxious about coming to a talk, right? It helps me kind of like, and it actually, there's a real, at least a real experience that happens that's nervous system regulating. Okay. And so it has real potentiality. And I think it's one of these kind of like, okay, fire can be used to heat up a meal and kind of create great things. And it can also be used like untended, can create great mass destruction, right? Or great kind of internal kind of destruction. So it's like, okay, we need to, it's a great technology. It is going to change everything, I believe. And I think there's a huge rush right now that we need to really kind of use the wisdom of, especially kind of the field of kind of psychotherapy and individuals, to inform and guide this very, what I would call perilous and important kind of, I think that's the real question of our time. Like there's okay, how do we incorporate this and stay human? Like there's this phrase, I'm team human, right? And I want us to kind of stay connected that way, and not kind of outsource anyways too much and lose ourselves, right? So
Yes, totally. Yeah, and let's jump into this conversation about AI in therapy, since you mentioned your app. And just a message to the audience, I will open for the Q&A after these questions, so please stay with us and prepare your questions to our speakers, because they will take your questions in a minute. So when it comes to AI and therapy, there is a phenomena that in psychology we know as transference, which is this process when a patient unconsciously projects their feelings, fears, and hopes onto a therapist. And this is where the transformation starts to happen as a very important moment in the therapy. But what happens when the therapist is an AI? So in the end, my question is, does therapy with AI really work? Or is it just a type of good but not ideal method for therapy?
Sure. So the first thing I just want to kind of name or claim is like the word therapy. Like when you use that with a therapist, it's like, wait a second, because it's like kind of, yeah. And I know that there's a lot of companies that are kind of branding themselves as like a therapy substitute or therapy even adjacent, and are sometimes sub-communicating. We do therapy better than therapists, even though we're not really therapists, and we can't officially say that we're therapy, but wink, wink, kind of, So I just want to say, that there's, I think, so that's something that I think just want to name that into the space, right? Can a emotional support agent, can we have a transferential relational experience with kind of an AI agent that is significant and meaningful, right? And can we actually have transference, this transferential thing? Because at least one model of particularly relational psychotherapy, is that, okay, something gets evoked, like you remind me of my mother, right? It feels so good, but then something happens and then, oh, ouch, right? But then it gets evoked within the transference, but then we can have this corrective relational experience where like the historical wound gets evoked, but something emerges in the transference that evokes it, but also repairs it, where there's maybe rupture and then repair, and that corrective relational experience can be part of what healing is, okay? And so the question is, can you actually have transference with this AI entity, right? It's kind of the simulation rather than human, and can you have repair? Okay, I think relative to the first question, can you have transference? And I think and I think the answer is actually absolutely yes, right? You can totally have a transfer with particular AI, with some AI voice agents, they're just like, well, this is annoying, right? You're like my kind of not listening, interrupting kind of individual, like friend or whatever. And it's kind of interesting just because I've been listening to a lot of AI. I think when you add voice, it actually kind of enhances the transferential potentiality, because you get to choose sometimes, what kind of voice. Is it a British voice that sounds very kind of upper crust, or is it kind of a male voice or a female voice, or a deep kind of baritone, or like this more playful-ish voice, right? And I think, so there can totally be a transferential evocation, right, that emerges, especially when you use voice in the mix. I think it's less kind of visceral when it's just text, although you can get some of that, but it becomes a visceral transferential evocation, and I think some AI, like the transference, says, oh, you're just like this, you're not really, you're ADHD or whatever it is, like, or you're interrupting me, and it's like, you're annoying, like, stop that. And there's certain AI, and I've tried a bunch of them out there, that are just like, I'm sorry, where they can't repair the rupture. They're just, their technology is not sufficiently developed, or I have this theory that the AI kind of models that get generated take the shape of the founders who create them, almost. Like I was watching some interviews, like the founder here is not really very attuned, not really very listening, and their AI that they create is actually almost is imbued with those qualities, which is kind of an interesting, I don't know, just observation. But yes, you can totally have a transferential evocation, right, that emerges, especially when you start to implement voice, right, and all the associations that come therein. And you can totally have rupture, and you can, if the agent is sufficiently kind of developed, you can also have repair, right? It typically, like it operates within the linguistic domain, so you can have like at least a cognitive repair. Sometimes there's an emotional felt experience of, oh, hey, I didn't actually mean that when you said that, or you're talking too much, or stop that. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, right? If you train the AI, or if the AI is sufficiently kind of attuned, right, it can create a pseudo repair process that can feel a little bit reparative, or like, yeah, just like you said. anyways, I'm going on for so long, but like the reparative process, a simple transference might be like, like it's never safe for me to talk about a certain experience of abuse, right? Kind of, I'm transferring that initially onto any voice agent that I might communicate with. I have this kind of natural fear transferential response towards even the act of speaking, but you seem a little bit safe, but it's at that edge. I share, and then but it's held and it's heard, and that becomes a corrective, potentially relational moment, which at least the model is, and this actually happens in psychotherapy too, right? It's not safe for me to talk about my trauma, right, with people, but I can share it in the context of a psychotherapeutic relationship, and then when I can do it there, it can generalize maybe to kind of sharing it kind of more externally. So anyways, I'm long-winded. I used to be a professor, but basically the answer is, I believe that transference can happen within kind of that relational context of sufficiently kind of sophisticated AI voice agents in particular. I don't think it happens that much because I think most people haven't figured out how to evoke that or create enough containment to get more than just like the annoying, okay, pseudo information gathering transference. But anyways, but I think it's here, it's coming, and I think it has the potentiality to do great good. Yeah.
Amazing. That's a great answer to our question, and it really brings this enlightenment to this topic, because there are so many people talking about this and without real data or really a grounded, scientifically grounded perspective. And you brought us this, so thank you very much. I have just put in the chat the link for the website of your AI. So please, if anyone would like to try or to make any questions, please feel welcomed. Now I would like to open for the Q&A. So you will see that there is a button here called Ask a Question. If anyone would like to ask anything, please, the floor will be yours. So please click on this option. And I see that there is someone that already. Nick Field. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good. How are you? Bonsoir. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure. So,
So,
what
so
is
I
your
have,
question and to whom it's addressed?
it's in the same kind of vein, but it's to both panelists. So to Rachida, so when you imagine when your son's a bit older, when he's in lycée, is it okay for him to use AI for his homework? Like, how do you see that with involving his education? And then Dr. Wong, to you, I'd say, what's AI's role in education for students? Because it is a tool that people are going to be using, but what's the effective way that you think AI should be used for students? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a super interesting question. And yes, I won't surprise you. I will allow AI as a tool for homeworks, just because I'm using it as a tool for work. And I have to, I think it's both the responsibility of teachers, but also me as a mom, to show that it's a tool to enhance the possibilities, to go quicker, to be faster. I have this feeling that I'm using maybe ChatGPT and Claude for about a year and so, and I have this feeling that I have maybe lived the equivalent of 5 or 10 years of professional life. It's demultiplicating a potential, so it's super interesting. But I have always this feeling that it's like, a wild horse. You always need to, take the drive and drive it, and it's really wild. So I think we have a strong responsibility to teach methodology to kids, how you phrase, we call it a problematic, a problem, a topics, what is, learn to use, how to question the topic, and then when you have answers, resources, be a kind of like this. I remember this series with Dr. House. He was saying the patient is always lying. Let's say that the AA is always lying. So fact checked, ask reverse questions. So I think we have a great opportunity. It's demultiplicating the possibility for kids, but we need to teach them methodology, how to navigate all those data, how to distinguish between fake news and good news, facts and opinion, etc., etc. So it's like a kind of toolbox for critical thinking, like driving a car. If we don't teach them how to drive a car, they will have an accident. So you speak, Dr. Wang, about fire. I think it's the same thing. We need to teach them how to use this Promethean fire, I would say.
Yeah, what a great metaphor, the Promethean fire, indeed, right? Yeah, it's kind of the great promise in peril. Yeah, it's such an important question. Thank you for that question about, yeah, kind of how, because it's here, right? It's here. People are using it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, and I think maybe a simple distinction might be just that old quote, like, give a person a fish, they eat for a day. Like, teach a person to fish, they eat for a lifetime, right? And I think sometimes people are using ChatGPT to do their homework, right? Like, I have an essay, okay, ChatGPT, whatever, write my essay. And so they're almost outsourcing the learning to chat, or outsourcing the assignment, and therefore cutting themselves out of the loop of learning, right? And I think that is a very risky way of using ChatGPT. I think there are certain studies where people start to outsource things and then lose their kind of actual cognitive or capacities to make those. I think they were using some studies like to accurately diagnose. Yes, it can diagnose better, but then people lose their capacity to perform the functions to which the AI agent is outsourced. So I think kind of it's just as it's important to keep the human or the therapist in the loop relative to kind of creating emotional support. I think it's important to not take your brain out of the loop of learning, right? I think people are trying to take their mind out of the loop of learning just to kind of, like, get through the class, right? Versus actually letting themselves be embedded in the flow of education, whether it's being a thought partner, kind of letting it kind of enhance their education, enhance their understanding, so that they actually have real ownership of it, rather than outsourcing kind of assignments. I think that our entire school curriculum, when I used to teach in grad school, sometimes we used to say, students are being asked to write papers that they don't want to write, and they're giving them to professors who don't want to read kind of what they write, right? And I think there's going to be maybe different ways in which we need to kind of experience this commingling of minds, right? Where we really kind of make sure that humans are in the loop of learning. Because I think there's so much within our educational system which permits kind of a little backdoor kind of taking my mind out of the loop, kind of outsourcing things to something so that I can pass the test, versus, okay, here we are, I'm with you, like you're with me, I see you, you're nodding, okay, we're talking, we're actually having a real conversation, right? It's not just AI slopifying your words into my thoughts, right? And so I think there's something about kind of the experience of education. In Buddhism, they have this saying, like, Buddhism is transferred or taught passed from one warm hand to another, right? And I think there's something about kind of almost like an educational process that allows people to kind of experience the minds, or the commingling of minds with each other, and maybe with the assistance of kind of a commingling, but making sure that kind of the end process happens kind of in this intermingling that's almost maybe human to human, or there's something important. I don't want to take humans out of the loop of our own kind of becoming an educational process. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for this. So we are running late, and I know that probably the audience is getting tired of our voices and they have a life. In any case, I will take this last question from Ronit Wilmersdorfer. I think I pronounced it correctly. Don't know. Anyways, Ronit, your question. He says, Dr. Wong, I'm interested in how you in your app have ensured appropriate guardrails against inappropriate, ethically, medically unsound responses.
That's an excellent question, right? And it's something that I grapple with, right? And it's another reason why I'm not kind of pushing things. So at least so there's different models. So some of it's like, okay, this is the question within the field, right? And the way to try to do it, and I think I think we need to do more testing, right? I think there's certain kind of what we call red teaming testing standards that need to be implemented. And I also want to say that I don't think my app is perfect, right? So I think I just want to make those disclaimers. So I think there's some different ways, and I don't know. I don't know what your background is relative to, are you coming from a kind of an AI computational background? But there's different approaches that people use kind of relative to kind of solving these issues. Sometimes there's things like mixture of experts models, where you're not just taking one large language model, right, kind of to interact with the individual, but also creating a supervisory layer, right, over that, right, where you have kind of maybe your LLM, and then kind of you have kind of a supervisory layer. I think kind of there are people who are trying to do that. My belief is that we are at the stage where what we need is two things. We need therapists in the loop, okay? So we need therapists in the loop, and we need clinical geofencing. So we need, so I think the determination about who uses what is a really important and difficult question. And I think it's not something that at this stage that we can automate away. And I think and what we need is to have therapists in the loop where they can conduct a clinical interview with somebody prior to using something for emotional support kind of purposes. That I think is probably the appropriate, safe way to kind of enforce that. Yeah. What I'll share is, like, I think what I think is the right way to do it, right? So we need what we call like safety drivers, like, kind of in Rashida's case, there was like kind of very, very specific human oversight. There was kind of parental involvement, human oversight. I think if we're trying to do this for an emotional support app, we need therapists in the loop, kind of at the front end to clinically geofence it, right? Where like people who have predilection for psychosis, or people who are borderline organized, they shouldn't be implementing or utilizing the app. People who might have more suicidal ideation, right? Kind of, it's not appropriate at this stage of safety. And so we need both therapists in the loop, guardrails, as well as some kind of clinical geofencing with therapists in the loop. So I think that's the right way to do it. It's a hard question. I'm continuing to build. What I would say is my project is really still a beta version. I'm a practicing therapist. I have kind of, I love my work. It's very important. So but this is kind of the state of affairs right now. Currently, so that's where it at. I'll share that. Yeah, that's my sense of the correct answer, and the implementation isn't fully fleshed out. So just to name that in full disclosure as well. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I totally agree with the comment from Warren Bowles here on the chat. He says, I love the notion of a therapist in the loop, Dr. Albert. And indeed, something really important and valuable. Well, before we wrap up, I'd like to thank you, the wonderful guests that we had today, Rachida Bouaiss and Dr. Albert Wong, for sharing not only your expertise with us today, but also your humanity, which is perhaps what we need the most in this era to protect people in the era of intelligent machines. So thank you very much. And please, everyone, connect with our speakers on LinkedIn. You have also on the chat there the link for the app built by Dr. Albert Wong. And to close the event, I would like to hear a bit from, let's say, the last recommendations or advice that our speakers could give us on this matter. So, first, beginning with Rachida, if you could share one piece of advice with other parents that are here today, something that you have learned in this process, what would it be?
Wow, big question, the biggest one for the end. I would say let your children explore. So don't be afraid of AA. It's frightening. It's frightening. I'm afraid too of it. I don't know. It's like a big mountain to climb or bigger. I don't know what hole to dive in. But don't idolize it neither. It has lots of limits. I don't know how many times across the day I say, but you are dumb or what? You're driving me crazy. You don't understand what I'm trying to do. You make me wasting my time. So it's not a super intelligence. Maybe explain how it works. It's a machine built out of its database. So just like for a car, you open the thing and you show how the motor is working. And so yes, let's and also something very important. Explain, but Dr. Wong said later that it's biased. It's not the truth. It's not knowledge. It's just an aggregation of things, and it's designed by people who have an ideology. And so it's a certain point of view, and you have to build your own point of view out of that. So and again, Dr. Wong say always have a therapist in the loop, and I would say always have a relative or a parent in the loop and keep the conversation open, not just with AA conversation, but also human conversation.
Thank you very much, Rachida. Yes. Dr. Albert, over to you to your closing remarks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for who's here. Rachida, I completely kind of amplify and support everything that you said there. Yeah. So kind of, I think if you're a parent, right, kind of stay close, right, kind of, kind of incorporate, be attuned, have conversations with your child, right, adolescent, right, kind of, we can't solve the problems if people aren't kind of attuned or listening. So yes, try and stay close if you can. I think there's also some people who might be builders kind of in this space. What I would say is, I think there's a lot of pressures within this space to try and build, and there's a lot of economic pressures to build, and I think there's a lot of good intentionality as well. I think some people kind of come into this field because they want to make a difference, and then some people come into the field with a mixture of things where they both want to make a difference and they and they might have maybe less charitable kind of intentionalities, right? Kind of who are building kind of things with a certain kind of aspiration to gain market share, et cetera. What I know about artificial intelligence is that it is an intentionality amplifier. Like whatever you want, right, it will help that intention magnify. And if we come from a certain intentionality of, okay, I'm going to design something to extract value, to get people kind of dependent or hooked, you can do that. You can, right? And it's a dangerous power. And if you are intending to create something that helps people and betters their lives, I think you can also. And I would just encourage you to, if you can, operate from that intentionality as much as possible, even though I know there's complex forces in each of our lives at play. But that would be my invitation and my hope. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This was such an insightful session. Thank you all. Thank you to our guests here tonight. And have a wonderful evening or day, whatever you are in the world. And thank you again for being part of this conversation. See you next time and stay tuned on our social media in order to participate in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.